They told us the Jedi were saviors, that their wisdom lit the stars and their silence preserved balance. They taught us to revere robes and rituals, to kneel before codes etched in time. But somewhere between reverence and reality, the truth was lost beneath layers of lies. Every youngling was taught to forget, to erase their roots, to abandon love and call it clarity, to turn grief into detachment and call it strength. They were forged not to feel, but to serve, and in their service, they surrendered the very soul they swore to protect. The Jedi Code was never a path to peace. It was a chain disguised as serenity, a quiet control masked by calm voices and distant gazes. It wasn't about understanding the Force. It was about caging it, distilling it into a set of absolutes that left no room for truth. When Anakin cried out, they turned away. When Ahsoka questioned, they cast her out. When Dooku warned, they silenced him. Over and over, the Order chose loyalty to doctrine over loyalty to people. And every time they did, the galaxy slipped further into the dark. But even darkness reveals what light refuses to see. And in that shadow, we find the cracks in the legend, the flaws in the fortress, the echoes of voices that never stopped questioning, that dared to feel, that refused to obey a code written not in compassion, but in fear. In this video, we are going to uncover the Jedi Order's greatest secret. We'll break down how the Jedi Code wasn't a noble guide, but a manipulative system designed to erase identity. We'll examine the stories of those it failed, and ask whether peace is truly peace, when it comes at the cost of who you are. They told us that Jedi were guardians of peace. They said their teachings were sacred, their ways enlightened, their code unbreakable. But when you strip away the ceremony and the dogma, what's left feels less like wisdom and more like a leash. A set of rules that silence feeling, reject attachment, and punish truth when it doesn't align with order. It makes you wonder who the code was really built to serve. The code forbids emotion, yet demands compassion. It denies possession, but commands loyalty to a crumbling council. How can you be at peace when you're trained to deny love, silence, grief, and walk away from the people who need you most? These aren't contradictions by accident. These are contradictions by design. A blueprint to produce obedience, not balance. Younglings are taken before they even understand what choice is, taught that fear is weakness, love is danger, and identity is a distraction. They're molded into weapons and told they are saints, programmed to trust only the Jedi, and if they ever question the code, they're told they're fallen to the dark side. Not because it's true, but because it keeps them controlled. It's easy to call the Sith villains. It's harder to admit that Jedi were jailers. Wrapped in robes and righteousness, they dictated morality to an entire galaxy, not through empathy, but through exclusion. If you didn't fit their version of light, you were cast into shadow. The code wasn't a guide, it was a filter, one that erased everything inconvenient. And still, we believed in it. We memorized its lines. We repeated them like gospel, because no one told us to look closer. To question why a path to peace begins with the erasure of self. But now, we're starting to see the cracks. And in those cracks, something ancient, something honest, begins to whisper back. How many lives were ruined by the Jedi's refusal to evolve? How many wars were started by their silence, their fear of change, their obsession with control? They watched the galaxy fall into chaos and still clung to the code like a relic, as if sacred words mattered more than shattered people. They exiled anyone who felt too deeply, banished those who loved too loudly. Ahsoka, Dooku, even Anakin, all punished not for violence, but for emotion, for refusing to be cold enough, detached enough, obedient enough. The Jedi didn't protect the Republic, they protected their dogma. And what did it cost? Padawans raised in fear, masters broken by guilt, a galaxy fractured because the Order couldn't admit it was wrong. They claimed neutrality while picking sides. They claimed peace while commanding armies. The code wasn't a light, it was a muzzle, one that choked out anything real. Every time someone reached out for help, the Jedi reached back with rules. Every time a heart broke, they offered silence. Every time pain spoke, they answered with detachment. It wasn't wisdom, it was emotional sterilization, disguised as discipline. A doctrine of numbness. Imagine growing up never being allowed to feel. Told your dreams were distractions, your tears were dangers, your love was forbidden. The Jedi stripped away everything that made someone human, and called it enlightenment. That's not peace. That's pain hidden in plain sight. Anakin didn't fall because he was weak. He fell because he was desperate, because the only family he ever knew refused to love him back. He begged for understanding. He cried out for help, and the Jedi turned away. Not because they didn't care, but because their code wouldn't let them. Ahsoka walked away, not in anger, but in heartbreak. Accused by the Order she swore to serve. Abandoned when she needed trust the most. She saw what others refused to admit, that the Jedi had lost their way, and she left not because she hated them, but because they no longer resembled what they claimed to be. Count Dooku saw the corruption too, but he chose bitterness instead of healing, because when hope is crushed, rage feels like the only thing left. The Jedi feared the dark so much, they forgot how to walk in the grey, and in doing so, they created every shadow they tried to erase. So many could have been saved, if the code had made room for compassion, if it allowed grief to breathe, if it welcomed love instead of labeling it a flaw, but it didn't. And the result wasn't just a fallen chosen one. It was a galaxy scarred by the silence of those who should have known better. But what if the code had evolved? What if the Jedi had listened, had changed, had remembered that balance isn't the absence of darkness, but the harmony between light and shadow? Then maybe the Force wouldn't have needed to break them, to rebuild what they forgot. There was beauty in the Jedi once, in their courage, in their willingness to defend those without power, in their dedication to peace. But that beauty was buried beneath fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of passion, fear of change. They became mirrors of the very thing they feared, and yet the Force kept moving, kept flowing beyond their walls, into those the Jedi ignored. Rebels, exiles, wanderers. People like Kanan, like Rey, like Grogu. Carriers of light who never learned the code, but knew the heart of the Force by instinct, not instruction. There's a new generation now, one not bound by the failures of the old, one that sees the flaws of the past, but isn't afraid to build something better. They don't reject emotion, they embrace it. They don't silence pain, they listen to it. They don't follow blindly, they choose freely. The Jedi can rise again, not as enforcers of ancient rules, but as guides, as guardians who understand that peace isn't order, it's empathy, that love isn't weakness, it's strength, that the Force isn't light or dark, it's choice, and choice begins with freedom. Imagine a Jedi who cries when they fail, who loves without shame, who fears without guilt, who walks into the fire not because the code says so, but because their heart knows it's right. That's the Jedi the galaxy needs, not perfection, but presence. We've seen what happens when the Jedi lose their way, but we've also seen what happens when they find it again, when they fight not for control, but for connection, when they remember that the Force isn't a weapon, it's a whisper, a song, a promise, and maybe, just maybe, the next time someone feels the Force stir inside them, they won't be told to silence it, they'll be told to listen, to follow it, to trust it, not as a rule, but as a truth, one that finally sets them free. But the truth still lingers. The Jedi fell not because they were hunted, but because they were hollow, built on a foundation that demanded silence over self, duty over honesty, obedience over truth. And when the storm came, they crumbled under their own weight. Anakin didn't destroy the Jedi Order, he exposed it. He shattered the illusion that the code was sacred, that the Jedi were infallible. And in that destruction, in that fire, something real was revealed, something the Order had buried for centuries. The simple truth that control is not clarity. The galaxy mourned the Jedi, but it also moved on, because deep down, it knew something was broken, and no amount of tradition could save it. The Force had to burn the roots to let new life grow, and even then, the shadow of the code still tries to take hold. We carry those echoes still, the guilt, the reverence, the fear, but also the lesson. That power without vulnerability is a cage, that peace without passion is a lie, that the Force cannot be mastered, only met, only felt, only honored.